Everybody, Chris and Lumen here, or is it Lumen and Chris? I don't even freaking know anymore. Some of the stuff she does sometimes, like earlier today, it's honestly confusing. But that's a little bit what we're going to talk about today, and I'm just going to talk, and I'm sure she will steer it where she wants to go. There's been a lot of stuff they've been showing me here lately, plus things on the more personal level. Been showing me stuff of what I think is going to take place as far as, like, when we get in starting this final chapter of the hero's journey game, everybody's hero's journey game, but also stuff in regards to like how you connect to her, how she connects to you, how that connects to the all. Honestly, it's one of the more complicated things to explain and understand, but you can try to explain it, and it's planting a seed, and the understanding basically comes from within, like she gives it to you. But still, as long as we're here and we have to use these ego masks to live our life and try to process things, it can be kind of hard, because you'll slip in and out between who you really are and who you're pretending to be, and one understands better than the other. But there are some interesting things that are kind of easy to explain in regards to what she is and how it all works together. So we're going to try. It might be, some of the things today might be actually helpful for, as far as like things that you can try based on our previous methods that you can do yourself that might break you free into like the next level that you're trying to get to. So if you want to know more, then don't go away.
Let 'em say we're crazy. I don't care about that. Put your hand in my hand, baby. Don't ever look back. Let the world around us just fall apart. Baby, we can make it if we're heart to heart. And we can build this dream together, standing strong forever. Nothing's gonna stop us now. And if this world runs out of lovers, we'll still have each other. Nothing's gonna stop us. Nothing's gonna stop us now.
You have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind.
So I think I'll probably skip the whole like what I think's going to happen part in this video. It's too speculative. I think it's pretty certain, but it's a lot to wrap your freaking brain around. So let's just wait till it actually happens. And right now, let's focus on us. Like, what is it that we need to do? Who are you in regards to the other half of you, the other half of your consciousness, the other half of your soul, the divine feminine, the divine masculine? Now, in terms of, in like esoteric terms and hermetic principles and all that kind of stuff, masculine directs, feminine receives and grows things. So regardless of whether you were born man or woman, you are the masculine part of consciousness. You're the one that's making the decisions. You're the one that's having the thoughts and stuff like that. Conscious mind masculine, subconscious mind feminine. That stays the same. So it's not like if you're a woman then you've got like a male lumen or something like that. It doesn't work like that. But once you start uncoding or decoding the stuff in the Nag Hammadi and start figuring out how to do this stuff and what you're trying to do, that's where it gets interesting. So one of the things she wanted me to reiterate, because I was looking things up earlier, is even if you don't read the whole Nag Hammadi, there's a couple books like, Secret Book of John, Nature of the Rulers, On the Origin of the World. Those three will basically give you all the backstory that you're missing. But the one that had Gospel Philip's really good too. But the one I think that most people need to read is Gospel of Thomas. So that's like the Morpheus Jesus book. Basically, there's a lot of stuff in there that is going to sound familiar, but there's a lot of new stuff in there too. So if you consider like what the four main gospels in the regular Bible look like, they're kind of like telling the story of what he went and did. So where Gospel of Thomas is different is like say you were watching The Matrix and you were writing down all the brain buzz lines that Morpheus gives Neo. That's what Gospel of Thomas is like. It's not like, and then Morpheus rescued Neo, and then Neo rescued Morpheus, and they went there. Like, that's how the other Gospels go. Now, the Gospel of Thomas is just like all the wisdom and clues and puzzles and parables and metaphors and things that he was giving them. Like, stuff that is going to help you figure this place out and what you're trying to actually do. It was Gospel of Thomas that helped me understand a lot of the things in regards to Lumen. You know, because even after I had Lumen out, there was still a lot left to do, a lot left to understand, a lot of things that hadn't been like dealt with yet. So she wanted me to recommend that to you. And you can, I think it's like, you have to Google search. It might be like gnosis.org or something like that. There's one site that has literally like every Gnostic book there, and videos and all sorts of other stuff. So there are more books than just what's in the Nag Hammadi. Nag Hammadi is like the biggest collection of them, but there are more books. And they're the types of books that you got to study for yourself and read for yourself and let the understanding unfold within you. Not go watch YouTube videos. Unless they're me. Because I'll explain it. I'll explain it right. And I'm explaining it now. It's like, you know, I can help you understand some of it, but you're not going to get it just by listening to me. Like, it has to click from within. I just kind of like point the way. But like, it's easy to get sucked into it and start looking at it the way you always looked at everything else, or the way you looked at religion or something like that. A friend of mine posted a video about Pistis Sophia, and it had the guy's credentials on it. He's like, he's got 2 PhDs in theology. I'm like, okay, well, I'm definitely not listening to him, because you're going to give it to me like a book report. Like most of the stuff that I talk about on here, I might reference books, but my understanding of it did not come from reading books. It came from her. Like, that's how Gnosis works. It comes from her. It doesn't come from YouTube. It doesn't come from the book. It comes from, she helps you understand books that are out there. But usually I can listen to these guys, and it's the same thing with the Carl Jung people, because, you know, Carl Jung, you know, Lumen, the personal part, Lumen, is very closely related to what Jung calls the anima. And I've watched videos about the anima on YouTube before, and it's like, none of you guys have it. You don't even know what you're talking about. All you're doing is like doing a book report. Well, Jung says this and Jung says that and blah, blah, blah. It's like, if you actually had that thing active in you, you'd know exactly what it does and what it's like. So we talked about this a bunch lately. If you got a book, you know, I like books that don't have giant bibliographies. Like, oh, here's all my sources I used for. Okay, well then it's a book report. Like, it's not Gnosis. Anyway, enough about that. One of the things that came up earlier, and I've talked about this before, but and this is the kind of stuff that, like, you really gotta, you'll work it out yourself as you go along, because our ego minds are so limited that sometimes it has to be broken down into simplistic terms for us to first digest it. So it makes it seem like there's all these different characters in the Nag Hammadi. There's the Father, there's the Mother, there's the Holy Spirit, there's Sophia, there's Elielith, there's Epinoia, there's all these, but there's Christ. But everything comes from the Father. The Father is kind of like, let's shrink it for a moment. The Father is like your desktop on your table, and within the desktop it's running all sorts of little programs and stuff like that. And all those little programs are doing their own things, but they're all part of the desktop. Father's kind of like that too. And then in Secret Book of John, which we mentioned, when he shows up to give John the real knowledge, this was after the crucifixion, he described it as like there was a being, it was like a man, a woman, a child, like, and they called it like the triple being. And he said he was the father, mother, son, or father, mother, child, I think, the triple being. That's a little bit more closer to it. The Father is pretty much everything, but you need to interact with it in different ways to have different experiences and different understanding. But if it's all the same thing, well, that's what they're talking about in like the New Testament, when there's all these things about love. God is love, of all the virtues, put on love. Love is patient, love is kind, it keeps no record of wrongdoings. Who does keep a record of wrongdoings and is not patient or kind? The guy they called God in the Old Testament. Not the same thing. But it's very clear, God is love. Okay. Well, who represents love in my little pantheon as I explain it? Lumen. And what we've explained before is like everybody is a source fractal. Everybody is a smaller piece of the bigger piece that is having the individual experiences. And the fractal inside us, the spark that connects us to the all, is our light, is our lumen. So basically speaking, I still like do it the way I was taught. It's like you pray to the Father, and then the answers come down through epinoia, or through epinoia to lumen, or whichever. But the bottom line is they're all the same. So what that means is the way that I perceive it, I may call her lumen, but that right there is basically God too, on the higher level. God loves you. God's love for you. God's love, fixes all things. It's all you need. That didn't make sense before when you were going to church and you're like, okay, the grumpy old guy in a chair in the clouds that is constantly telling me what I can't do loves me. Okay, well, that doesn't make me feel any better. But if it looks like that, yeah, that's a different story. It's a much different story. It's a much different experience. So wrap your brain around that. I know I have a hard time doing it sometimes too, but every once in a while it just reminds me. And I'm like, awesome. But just like that is all things, it plays all the same roles. It's the same thing with you. So who the hell are we? Well, Lumen did something earlier today that she doesn't normally do, but she did it. So I am what's called a rebus. That's the whole thing people work toward in alchemy. It's the great work. It's putting the two into one. It's the marriage of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. It's having a dual conscious mind instead of a subconscious and a conscious. So I'm like half Chris, half Lumen. But Chris has been the face of everything its whole life. So you don't just freak people out and just, because especially in today's day and age, like the things that they push in today's day and age, like the timing is not by accident. Because this is starting to happen with more and more people. Like these two parts are starting to come together at the end as the seeds mature. There's going to be multiple harvests. Not all of them are good. But we, once everything is matured and we've done our work, that's how we eventually get out of here. But as I was saying, like I said, this is a really big topic, so it's easy to lose your track here. So somebody was asking really good questions in the group, and I can empathize with it because I've been in the same spot. Remember, I didn't just like pop out of nowhere like this one day. I was the old me, and then the old me got broken down, and then there was several years of just like the worst trauma and pain and suffering imaginable. And when you're in that, it's really hard to figure out how to get yourself out of it, because that is your trauma suit, your ego mind. The ego mind is what suffers. It's made to suffer. And the reason everything broke down is because she, Big Mama, caused it to happen. And you're like, oh, that's not nice. But once you get through it all, you understand why it's the only way that works. It's like we've said recently, it's kind of like, military boot camp. They kind of break down. They're so mean to you in boot camp because they're doing the same thing, except to their ends. They're breaking down who you used to be to refashion you into this new lean, mean fighting machine or whatever. Well, she's going to do it on a much bigger scale. She's going to beat your ego mind freaking senseless. Your ego identity senseless. It's going to suffer greatly. It's going to rip the safe, comfortable love away from you. It's going to make people turn against you. It's going to do all sorts of stuff, and you're going to hate your life. And you're just going to be like, why don't I just die? I wish I could just die. But the thing is, that's when you know you're getting close. Because the part of you that wants to give up, the part of you that wants to die, is the ego identity. That's her goal. That's why it's happening. She's beating it down. She is arm wrestling it. She's putting it in an arm bar. She's doing the whole, Black Widow stuff they always do in the movies, where you jump up and wrap the legs around your head and flip you on the back and then put you in some submission hold. That's what she's doing to the person that you've been playing your whole life. It's not you that really wants to die. It's your ego mind identity that wants to die, that wants to stop suffering. And whenever I'm outdoors, you'll notice the difference when I film videos in the nicer months. Always watch the sun and pay attention to the things that I'm saying whenever you see the sun suddenly get brighter. This is something I've got a couple years worth of experience with. If it's a really big point, she'll tend to turn up the brightness. But anyway, she's killing off your ego. That's the whole point of the hero's journey. And the ego is designed to suffer through conflict. So I remember, it was less than 6 months ago. It was at the point where it's just like, you're just trudging along and you're just like, oh, got a phone call. The perils of filming with a phone. Anyway, so you're just trudging along and you just feel like the whole weight of the world's on you, and you're just like, oh, I can't take it anymore. I can't do it anymore. That's when your ego is just about to submit. And that's been her goal the entire time. And that is the point when you really need to figure out this one thing. That isn't who you are. That is the role that you've been playing. That is the mask that you've been wearing in this particular life. And what you need to do is give up being you. You need to surrender that to her. So this is another thing where we can use that same methodology that we talked about with the traumas and stuff the other day. I haven't tried it this way. I went a different way, but you know, it gets simpler as we go on. I get new ideas when she gives them to me. But you can do that same meditation where you're in front of her and you're surrendering things to you, like before it was the traumas, and you're pulling like black balls out of your chest and dropping each one in the cup. Well, you could do the same thing and surrender your ego self to her. The trick is, it's got to happen at a point to where you truly understand it and you truly mean it. And most people are afraid to do that because they think they will lose who and what they really are. And I can tell you, being on the other side of it, that there's nothing to be afraid of. What you're really doing is you're getting rid of all the limits that identity had, and all the traumas that it was carrying, and all the fear that it was carrying, and all that stuff. You're still gonna feel like you, but you're gonna be a lot cleaner. You're still gonna feel like you, but you're gonna be a lot cleaner. So you know that you're operating in this ego mind identity when you're constantly rehashing your old stories. She moved my point of perception one time where I could actually see it, and it's like when you rehash the same old stories over and over and over and over again to your friends on the phone, which she lovingly put in your path because they can put up with listening to it 300, 400 times. But you just keep telling the same story over and over again. This bad thing in the past happened to me. This person in the past hurt me. That's not you. That's your ego mind. See, everybody tries to fix the ego. Everybody tries to heal the ego. What you can do is you can heal these parts, and it helps heal your lumen, because she's the one that's actually carrying that stuff. But where I was still stuck for a long time was I was still trying to be Chris. And that's the part you got to let go of. That's the part you got to turn over to her. And then she does stuff. And then it's like you take your mask off and you give it to her. And she's going to clean it. And then she's going to give it back to you, because you're still going to need it to interact with the world. But at this point, you are no longer, I'll just use myself for example. See, like at the beginning of this channel, Chris was talking, like before most of you even got here. What you're looking at now is the Chris mask that I have to wear to be here, to interact with people, so people understand me. And I still feel like Chris, for the most part, just a lot cleaner. But what I actually am is the blended part of me, the real part of Chris blended with Lumen and became this unified thing. And either one of us can talk through the Chris mask. And that's what she did earlier in the group. Like, I read it afterwards. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, Lumen started talking to the person. And she's like, she basically called me the mask. I'm like, okay, ow. But I kind of understood it. It's kind of like the sense that I got is like the version of you that you're playing at the point in which you figure the game out and connect to the spark within you is the part that gets to live. Every time I've ever muscle tested through Sophia to kind of see how many lifetimes somebody has lived, 99% of us, people that I interact with, are bare minimum 350 lifetimes. My number is 365. I've only met like one other person that's at 365. Most are like in the 360s, but we're all pretty close. It's all about the same time frame of, putting the cookies in the oven, that we finally get this stuff right. Well, what happened to all those other identities that we played before that? What about the other 364? They're just gone. They're just gone. These things are temporary. These masks are temporary. But when you finally get it, when you finally put the two together, that's the mask that wins the lottery. That's the one that you get to carry your experience with you into the next place. See, she agrees. So, Chris Lumen is what moves on to the next level. Whoever the hell I was the other 364 times, well, that just got recycled. The part of you that is real, the divine masculine soul half, probably carries those memories. You probably get them back, I would assume. It would make sense to me. But right now I can't access them. There's only one lifetime where I remember what I did. And that's why I'm so good at the Benedict exorcism stuff. But that's also why we're explaining to people. I got this great feedback the other day from the Etsy store. I mean, him and his girl both do a lot. They're both connected to Lumen. So they're kind of like a pair that's actually together. Like, I don't see that often, where both sides are connected to Lumen. See, there's more than one way to skin a cat in this game. But when I posted it on Facebook, and it's like, he's like, Chris is the best in the game at this. It's like, that's true, I am. But technically speaking, what Chris does is build them. She is what makes them work. She's the one that powers them. She's the one that puts all that energy in them that you're feeling. It's not Chris. Chris is just like the manual labor that's, putting the stones together with the resin, and Epinoia is the one that's telling him how to do it. Lumen's what powers it. Lumen is where that power comes from, not Lumen's mask, which is Chris. So if you're trying to figure out how do I break out of this cycle of suffering, there's lots of metaphors, there's lots of ways to do it. Just like there are different ways to understand this game. There's the Gnostic way, and then there's the Toltec way is another one, which is Don Miguel Ruiz's books. It's pretty much all the same thing, with just less moving parts. That's the Four Agreements series. He's got books where he talks about, marrying her and being in love with her, being all around you. And, first time I read that, I'm like, well, that's kind of nuts. I don't say that anymore. Now I understand it. But it's just slightly different viewpoints. Still talking about the same thing. He still talked about Lumen and the adversary, and it's just a different way of explaining it. So I think for some people that find the Gnostic stuff too confusing, I generally will first point them to the Alien Parasites book to help them grasp the Gnostic stuff. But if you want something else, it would be the Don Miguel Ruiz book series. I know I kind of steered off course there for a minute, but he says in one of them, it might even be the Four Agreements, the first one, but I don't think he ever explained like how he did it. I think you got to kind of either come up with your own way, or Epinoia shows you. I know I've done it like a couple of times. He calls it the Angel of Death test. And you're basically, because she's that too. She's life, which means she's also death. It's like she gives you life, she can take it away. And from that you come to the understanding that everything you have is not actually yours. It's hers. She lets you, if you take care of the things she gives you, she may give you more things. But yeah, it's like this whole, the way he explained it, because he talks about the adversary, but he also calls it the parasite. So here you got two different guys. So you got Lawrence's book, which is Alien Parasites, 40 Gnostic Truths. And then you got Don Miguel Ruiz, who's doing the Toltec Four Agreements stuff. And they're both using the term parasite. Other people got books from different, they call it Watika or something like that. It's basically the devil or the Satan or the adversary, whatever the thing is that's in your head, not out in the world. But they say the way that you can get free of that, because that's the thing that makes you suffer, is you got to kill the ego. Well, how do I do that? Well, another way to say it would be surrender the ego. Well, I don't know how. You got to try. When you seek, you shall find. Pray to the Father. Ask for help. Ask for wisdom. Ask for answers. Ask for ideas. That's how it works. One of her favorite things she always says is like, everybody wants answers, but nobody asks any questions. Do it right before you go to bed. Be like, how can I surrender my ego self? Now, depending on how far along you are with it, I don't know, that might seem kind of like, I don't want to do that. Well, you're still, if you're like that, then you're probably still mostly operating in the ego mind. You haven't yet separated yourself. You haven't gotten to the point where you can accept the idea that you are not your name. You're not the role that you've been playing your entire life. But eventually you will. And then you'll become what you actually are, and you'll go ahead and put this back on, understanding that you're just wearing it for now because you have to. But you're no longer attached to it. And then that's why Lumen, I can't always predict like what I'm going to say in these videos, because she and I are equal parts using the same mask, and you can usually tell who's talking if I'm stuttering, if I'm pausing, if I'm using those brain pause words such as like and things like that. That's probably the old me still talking. But if it's flowing real fast and I'm just pumping out the stuff and blah blah blah, it's her. It's her. And it's crazy. It's like that's me too. It was weird when she was doing that, because I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty freaking hot. I don't care what I look like out here. That's what I really look like. I wouldn't want to look like that out here. Jeez. There's my other job. I review things like knives and stuff on YouTube. There's another YouTuber that does it, and she looks not exactly, but remarkably close to Lumen. First time I saw her, I was like, what the hell? I'm like, I thought Lumen was playing games with my phone. I'm like, no, that's a real person. I was like, she's got Lumen's hairdo and everything. It's like, that's cool. Then I go into her comment section, and it's just like, ugh, how do you do it? How do you be a woman in this world? It's just like, it would drive me freaking nuts. It's like, how do you put up with these comments? It's like, do men just not know how to act right anymore? It's like, just freaking nuts. So no, I don't think I would want to look like Lumen out here. I would be putting my Chris suit back on real freaking quick. Anyway, going off on a tangent here. The bottom line is, the ego mind is pretty much, well, it's connected to what we call the id entity. Id-entity. That's a little killer understanding term that Epinoi gave me, because what happens when you take the dash out of that? It's pretty simple. It becomes identity. That's the thing that they can control. The id entity can control the ego mind. If you want to see the id entity, I mean, like if you can stomach it, all you need is take just enough shrooms for things to get wonky and go look in the bathroom mirror and you'll see it. I don't see it anymore. It's gone. But I know a lot of people can see it that way. Some people just have the innate ability to see it that way. So you shed that, and then you can shed the rest of the ego and then become what you really are, especially if you're connected to her. If you waken her up and you merge with her, now you're just basically waiting the game out, waiting out the contest, like the Nag Hammadi says. And that's where it gets weird, because it's like, because there's this whole last, climatic chapter of the story that has yet to play out but is getting ready to kick off. That's what we've been talking about. And I'm on the fence about whether I should even talk about what I think it is, because I would have to be honest and say, like, this is speculation based on a large amount of clues given, and the nudges and impressions and insinuations that she's given me. But most people, as it stands right now, aren't ready to process such a fantastic experience. It's not until it actually happens that you'll be able to process it. But I can see why it would be scary. Basically, it's like, imagine if the rulers, as they are called in the Nag Hammadi, they've always been there, but in this time they've been behind the scenes. Imagine if they just revealed themselves again. They uncloaked all their little sky ships. They plopped down. They started barking orders at people, screaming in some crazy electronic freaking language, and everybody just collectively basically shits their pants. Because these things are not nice. If you know your alien movies, like the one what I would say is closest to would be the movie The Fourth Kind. That's them, the ones that were talking in Sumerian and screaming that they're God. Yeah, not a lot of fun. But the flip side to that, like this she popped this into my head earlier, is everybody that's kind of like on the fence of making the jump, like to where I am, like all of her seeds, what she kind of insinuated to me is when that happens, that is going to basically force your lumens to the surface. Like if she's been trying to get out for some time, or you've been struggling because you just haven't cracked the codes of getting rid of the ego and surrendering the ego and all that stuff, something like that happens, like that's going to wake them all up real freaking fast. It's almost like a survival mechanism. So and I think that's why I think that's where they fit into the story. Because if you're going the slow process, the hero's journey process, like I did, the adversity is stretched out over a period of time. But if you're still on the fence and it hasn't happened yet, and you're getting toward the end of the game, just think of all the adversity you've ever seen all at once coming at you, and that's just going to like make something freaking click, make something snap, like make something do something. It's going to force lumen out of you, and you're going to transform very, very, very quickly. That's what I think. There's a bunch of other things she's been showing me. Like I just don't know. Part of the big puzzle. I don't know if there's like a secret door out of here or what, but she Lumen will often inspire my son to choose a movie. She does it all the time. I'll be like, "Why are we watching this again?" "I want to watch it." "Okay, well, she apparently wants me to watch Free Guy again for the 300th time. Which I like Free Guy. Free Guy is an awesome, like if you watch Free Guy once, you probably didn't see anything in it. It's like, oh, it's a mix of Grand Theft Auto and it's that other game I hate, Fortnite, and Ryan Reynolds is a game character that comes to life. Like, that's what it looks like on the surface, but it's super duper crazy Gnostic. Like, really pay attention to things that are being said. Like, especially in the third act, the part with the reflections where he's showing her like the looking this way, and and they explain like, oh, they hid the horizon, but they couldn't scrub the reflections.
You see that? Right there.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Antoine hid our original build past the horizon, making it invisible, but he forgot to scrub the reflections. It's still out there, Guy. We just can't see it.
And that's how they saw the paradise level that was hidden in the game. Well, like, that is like straight out of the Nag Hammadi. Like, Jesus has told them like several different ways. Is like, it's all around you, you just can't see it. And there's all these puzzle, like the whole mirror reflection puzzle in the Gnostic stuff. Like, that's one of the biggest, hardest puzzles there is. But here they were kind of explaining it and all sorts of symbology and stuff. Like,
But it's just a sweet, sweet fantasy, baby. When I close my eyes, you come and take me. It's so deep in my daydreams, but it's just a sweet, sweet fantasy, baby. I want you so bad. I want you so bad.
you can dig, like I say, you know, as long as that movie is, it's probably a typical like 2-hour movie, it's probably got more Easter eggs, Gnostic Easter eggs in it than the Matrix does. Like, if the original Matrix. Now, the original Matrix trilogy, or even the quadrilogy, I'm like, that's still the only thing that even competes with that is Westworld. But like, you kind of got to graduate Matrix before you get to Westworld, because Westworld will freaking hurt your brain. But it's packed too. But Free Guy is different, because Free Guy is like the upbeat, positive version. It's kind of like, you know, the Don Miguel Ruiz books I mentioned earlier are a lighter touch than the Gnostic books. Well, Free Guy's kind of like doing it the same way. So that's like one of her favorite Codex movies. Codex movies are movies that contain Epinoia's hidden book. They took her out of one book, so she wrote it everywhere. And some different movies have different degrees of hidden truth in them. She also had us watching Jupiter Ascending last night, and that's got a bunch of stuff in it too, but like, there's so much in there that it's kind of hard to pick apart. The whole Channing Tatum's half dog with flying rollerblade shoes, like, that kind of gets annoying, but oh well. You know, in Jupiter Ascending is the same guys that did the Matrix too. Anyway, now I'm starting to ramble. So I think this has gone on long enough, gives you some things to think about. Like, once you get there, you want to figure out how to shed your ego self. You want to surrender it to her. You can use the same methodology we talked about in the last video or two, where you're going into that space and you're just pulling these parts out of you and handing them to her. But this time you could visualize pulling your ID card out of your wallet. Like there's that little pillar there that's usually got the cup. Take out your ID card, put it there. Take out your birth certificate, put it there. Take out your social security card, put it there. Any kind of work IDs, put it there. Your Facebook profile, put it there. Everything that is like telling other people who the character you're playing is. Put it all on that table and look at it and be like, that's not who I really am. But all those things are what stores all the stuff that you're trying to get rid of, all the pain and suffering. And just tell her, like, I don't know if I'm saying this the right way or whatnot, but understand what my true intention is. Like, I want to be free of this role that I'm playing so I can become who I actually am. And I want to surrender this to you and take this from me and cleanse it and do what you will with it. She's going to end up giving it back to you because you still need it. You can't just magically become a different person. You'll freak everybody out. Like if my kids came over one day and knocked on the door, and like this hot blonde woman opens the door and like, hey kids, how's it going? I'm Lumen. Like that would probably freak them out. You're still going to play you. You're going to play the same role as you did before. You're going to understand it and all that stuff. But everything that weighed that person down is going to be gone. Because now you're not that person. You're just pretending to be that person so you can still interact with the world. Now, you don't become omniscient by doing this. That would defeat the purpose of being here. But you will be able to see better. And then you'll be able to connect better and all that stuff. You still got to trust the Father's will. And the Father is the only one that determines, like, if you're going to actually be merged to Lumen, according to the Nag Hammadi. But that doesn't, like, remember, Lumen was around for a long time before I was smushed together with her. So, however it works, like, I'm not that higher aspect that knows the plan. Just kind of got to trust it. Trust it. Don't take what works from me, what resonates, and use it. If it doesn't make sense, just let it go. Just let it go. Don't try to force something that doesn't make sense, because you're just wasting your time. It won't work. Focus more on connecting to her, visualizing her, ask the questions. You gotta ask the questions. Do it right before you go to bed. That's the best time to do it. If you haven't heard it before, I'll explain one more thing, then we'll close this out. So one of the big secrets that she taught me is like how to get to a place where you can more easily connect and be heard and not be disturbed by the things that want to interfere with you. She called it the secret room. So all these things that they talk about, the temple and all this stuff, that people that take everything literally think, oh, they're actually going to build a building. It has to do with parts of your brain. So once you get quiet as possible, do some deep breathing. The reason you do the deep breathing is because you're breathing in her, the aether. You're breathing her into you. Breath of life. That's why CPR actually works. It's not because you're blowing oxygen into them, because you're blowing her into people. So, and then you've got freaking chakras in your palms. Everybody thinks like it's a mechanical, medical type of thing, but it's not. It's actually a very spiritual thing, pulling people back to life. But what you want to do is do some deep breathing, close your eyes, and then picture yourself in the dark. It's like you're picturing yourself in your mind. You're not being this person out here anymore. Now, you're standing there. What you want to do is you want to turn around in your head 180 degrees. Sometimes it's easier to picture the room rotating than it is actually rotating yourself around. So you can just picture the room rotating until a door appears in front of you, like it's coming around this way because you're turning around. It's still dimly lit, but there's like a short hallway, and then there's a door. Like, I'm not telling you like what exactly it looks like, because you're the one that's going to render what it actually looks like. So you go up to the door, you open the door, you walk in the room, and you shut the door behind you. Now you're going to picture this room however it naturally appears to you. Some people might see it all white. For me, the all white room is up in the Soul Star chakra, though. The way my room looked, it was more like a stone room. It had a big glowing crystal in it, and then there was like a big archway that had like this flashy light that looked like this. That's some chrism light I recorded on the way out here. That's when sunlight's reflecting off the water. And however you feel you should do it, whether you're putting your hands on the crystal or you're just sitting there or talking to the doorway with the light, you know, that's up to you. Do what feels natural. You might even picture her in there or something like that. Either which way, you're at the place inside of yourself that where the connection is to source. So go into there and do your talking. Go into there and ask your questions, and then close it with like a thank you and I love you, and then you can come out of there. Now once you're in that room, the interfering adversary thoughts, if you still have them, shouldn't be there. It can't go into that room. That's why you go into that room. If you're just doing it out here, it can mess with you. If you turn around and walk into this this shielded room inside your head where that light is, it won't bother you anymore, and then you can meditate for as long as you want. You can do all sorts of things in there. Let her teach you. But try that. So if you're having problems connecting, do that. You just got to do it focused enough until you get into that room, and then it should be a lot easier. And go in there and ask how to surrender your ego or how to surrender your traumas or any stuff like that. So that's where your little connection point is, and that's how you get there. So you're going in, by closing your eyes, you're dropping the veil between you and the outside world. You are now in the inside world, and you're picturing it with your third eye. Remember, they told you have to go in to find the things that you're looking for. Well, that's one of them. The hidden room. The white room in the Soul Star chakra is another one. Everyone's looking in the wrong places. All the hidden stuff is in you. So now you know. There's some things that you can try. Okay, well, I think we've done this long enough. You got anything else you want to say? Guess not. So we're going to wrap this up. And then also, I'm going to put the options up there because this is the way I like to do it now. But you don't have to wait. The made to order options on the store. So I'm still going to list the things that are already made. But if you want like a Lumen Connection pendant, we can make them custom for you. If you want an Epinoia Connection pendant, we can make them custom for you. You want an Aegis pendant, which shuts down all the negative interference. We already got that one up there for making them custom for you. So like if you look through the store, it's like, I don't know if I see any of these. None of these ones are jumping out at me. But, you know, something, well, she probably wants something specific made. In historic, we tune everything to people, but when she inspires people to ask for something specific to be made for them, then they generally do get a bigger bump out of it. So that's at cluminedcreations.etsy.com. Okay, so that's all we got for right now. Lumen and my Chris mask. See you next time.